le jour s'enfuit, la vieille lanterne soudain s'allume et lui, c'est dans ce coin-là que le soir, on s'attendait, rempli d'espoir, tous deux, Lily Marlène, tous deux, Lily Marlène, tous deux, Lily Marlène. Et dans la nuit sombre, nos...
Claiborne, Louisiana.
Okay, and how long were you there?
About a year and a half.
Okay, so after boot camp, you got shipped overseas. Where'd you go first?
Landed in Ireland first, then over to England, then from England over to France, and after France up into the Dutch-German border, and so on. You can go watch a movie like The Band of Brothers, The Longest Day, Sands of Iwo Jima, and it shows pretty well what war is like, except for one thing. In reality, you don't have that musical background. The beautiful theme, inspirational music, we didn't have that. And of course, you can't smell the cordite from the exploded shells and so forth and so on. I think my guardian angel was watching over me, because my regiment suffered pretty high casualties, and I was one of the lucky ones that got home. I met a lot of good boys in training, boys from Tennessee, Iowa, Montana, Chicago, west side of Chicago, New York, a lot of diversity there. And I learned to respect especially the mountain boys and the southern boys. They like Western country and Western music. So I had to be careful. I couldn't stand that stuff, right? Anyway, I learned to live with it for a while, you know. And they were a good bunch of boys. See, when I went overseas, went over as a replacement for the D-Day invasion. We put you got a bunch of guys and put them in what they call a Repel depot, which is a replacement depot in England. And then after D-Day, with all the casualties they had, then we went over to replace the casualties and stayed with it until we needed more replacements and more, you know, it went on and on like that. After every engagement, battle, campaign, whatever you want to call it, we always needed more replacements. And that's the way it went, the end of the war.
What was your first reaction when you heard that the war was over, besides the obvious?
Yeah, well, let's see. We're going home. That's my reaction, everybody's reaction. And luckily I got home early and had the pick of the liver as far as the girls were concerned. Yeah, that's when I met your mother and got the Thunderbolt. I had over 51 years of heaven. In France, we had these hedgerows, and they were about 6 to 8 feet high. Well, I can remember crouched behind one of those things with German machine gun bullets, cutting the grass over my head and stuff like that. But that's one thing you can't explain to somebody who hasn't been there. You've got to be there. I didn't know what it was like going up as a replacement until I actually got my baptism of fire, as they call it. Then you know in your mind that somebody's trying to kill you, and it does something to you and inside that you can't explain to somebody who hasn't been under that or in there. That's why every time I see a fellow on the street my age, I always ask him, "Hey, what outfit were you in, buddy?" I suppose you could say I was scared, but I never had any doubt that we were going to win the war. Never a doubt. B-47s would shoot up and drop bombs ahead of us when we were making an attack. And their empty shell cases would fall, hit us on our helmets. That's how close they worked with us, the Air Force. Great guys. So every time we saw those boys going over, we said, yay.
Yeah. And how was it when you got home? What was your homecoming like?
Oh, great.
Yeah.
We landed at Newport News, Virginia, and the ports there, they had huge banners up, welcome home, well done. I mean, that made us feel good.
Oh, yeah.
And they took us right to the mess hall. We got anything we wanted to eat that we hadn't had for a long time. Mm-hmm. Oh, they treated us great and put us on first class trains going home. Yeah, it was great. In an infantry assault, you don't have time to be really scared because there's a lot of confusion, a lot of shooting, a lot of running and jumping into foxholes and out again and this and never, any plan never goes right. Always something goes wrong. And one particular assault that we were in France against one of the forts around the port of Brest, we got stalled. And I happened to be in the middle of an open field at the time, and I had to stay right where I was. So I crawled in a very shallow shell hole, and I figured I was safe there. But then I looked down to my right flank, and the Germans started firing their 88 aerial bursts. And the shell would burst at about 20 or 30 feet in the air. And I looked at it, I thought, well, maybe he'll go the other way with that. He'll traverse this way. Well, wrong. He started traversing the shell fire right toward me. That's the only time I ever saw death approaching me, you know. And as the shell burst, these beautiful black blooms in the sky, lethal blooms, coming towards me, and one after another, one after another, one after another. Finally, one right over my head. Shrapnel was kicking up dirt all around me, and I never got touched. So I figured my guardian angel was watching over me. The excitement of battle, you get hit or not, but you don't see it coming at you, you know. I shouldn't say that's terrible English. Kelly, is this an English class too? I mean, bunker caved in on me and my buddy. And as we were laying in this cave-like thing, we were relieved off our machine gun for, a couple hours. So we're laying in this thing. And on my stomach, both of the stomach had about that much leeway between our body and the ceiling of the cave. And as we're laying there, I felt a couple of clumps of dirt fall on the back of my legs. And I thought, and my buddy says, hey, Will, we better get out of here. So he starts crawling out. He gets about halfway out, and down comes all this debris. And he's buried in up to his waist. He's buried up to his waist, but he can't move. And I'm still in there, laying flat on my stomach, buried alive. And in fact, I tried to wiggle my toes. I couldn't even wiggle my toes. I was so flattened out in that thing. But I said, I gotta get out of here or I'm gonna die. So I twisted my body and jackknifed my body around, so I got my head out. And here's the debris, and here's this railroad embankment going up to where we had our machine gun position. And I couldn't move. I had to stay there until some of my buddies came down and started digging us out. And they finally dug us out. And what a relief that was. Oh man, I'll never forget when they took that last rod or log off my legs, and I was free. But my lieutenant said, I'm taking you back to the aid station, they'll check you out. thought I might have broken my back or something. I said, I'm okay, Lieutenant. No, come on. I'll take it back. So he takes me back. I think he just wanted a cup of coffee, which we had when we were back there, and got a little relief that way, So that was the end of that. I've had claustrophobia ever since. Can't get in it. You'd never get me in a coal mine or anything like that. I'd freak out. When I was a good Catholic boy, and I was making my first communion at 7 years old.
Does this have anything to do with the war?
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
I'm leading up to that.
Okay.
Be patient now. So, at that time, when you received your first communion, I don't know if there's any Catholics in the class right now, but things were different then. You couldn't eat or drink anything after midnight when you were receiving your first communion the next day. For some reason, I got awful thirsty that night, and about 1 o'clock in the morning, Mommy, I need a drink. I'm so thirsty. So my mother, dear heart, she gives me a drink of water. Well, I knew that was a sin, So that stuck in my mind for the next 20 years or so. So when I got overseas and we were in combat, and I thought I was going to die any day, I confessed to our chaplain what I did that time. I said, Father, I drank water before my first communion. He looked at me and he says, get out of here. Geez, you got enough to worry about. I served in the ETO, which was the European Theater of Operations. And we always had if you saw an infantryman walking around, he's always like this. He's always walking like this. And we called that the 88 crouch. And anybody who was over there, he'd know what I meant. That's the 88 millimeter German cannon. They fired at tanks, personnel, anti-aircraft. Oh, it was all-purpose weapon. In France, it was hedgerow to hedgerow, and then up the Dutch-German border, it was village to village to village. One time I got caught we were pulling out of a village, and I got caught in some of that concertina barbed wire. But I got out of it. I served with so many brave men that I don't know how to express that. I'll never forget them. I look in my regimental book once in a while, and I see the list of KIAs, 1,600 and some of them, all some I knew personally, and I mourned them, and I salute them. That's all I can say.
First to fight for the right and to build the nation's might, and the army goes rolling along. Proud of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won, and the army goes rolling along. Then it's hi, hi, hey, the army's on its way. Count off the cadence loud and strong. For wherever we go, you will always know that the army goes rolling along. First to fight for the right and to build the nation's might, and the army goes rolling along. Proud of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won, and the army goes rolling along. Then it's hi, hi, hey, the army's on its way. Count off the cadence loud and strong. For wherever we go, you will always know that the army goes rolling along.